Well, good evening, good morning, good day. I'm Electra Porzel, and I'm running a series of discussions based on Charles Einstein's blog in January on old stories and next stories. And the old stories are ones that humanity has lived by and built all its structures and has taught us how to behave within that story. And the next story is ones that we see rising or truths that we see in the world. So today's was, the old story is I exist independently. And we all know that one, right? Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. You have to do it all by yourself. You have to study by yourself. You have to take the test by yourself. No one else is going to help you. And we get taught that in so many ways. I remember when I was even in my 50s, I used to say, well, I'm just a cog in a wheel. I'm not related to anything other than I'm part of the grind here. And it took me a long time to come to this to kind of get an inner comprehension of the next step that he paired with this one. And he called it, I exist relationally. So if I'm going to say I exist relationally, then I say all of us exist relationally. And all of us being humans, as well as animals and plants, the land, we're together. As one of my friends said, I really do have to, she said, well, where do you think you would be if the planet didn't exist? Where do you think you would be? What would you be doing? Well, we don't know. But also, if you think about the home that you live in, somebody else built it. Somebody else brought the materials. Well, that's a relationship, right? If you think about the food on the table, somebody else grew it. Somebody else shipped it to the grocery store. And that's a relationship with all those people involved in your food. So everything about the world is relationship. We have been taught to think that we have to do everything by ourselves and be separate, but that is actually not the functioning of how the world actually functions. And one of the women in the group was talking about when the cleaners came and cleaned her house, and somebody else did something and cleaned up the trees on her land, and how happy the land was and the house was, and they were happy because each other was happy. And then she says, I'm so happy. So you have land, house, human, all experiencing joy and happiness. And that's how she registered the relationship between those three. And a lot of us don't have that deep of a physical reaction or response to our home, to the land we live on or we walk on. And sometimes we do. And it is in those moments of clarity where we see how we are part of a greater whole that the light shines in and we go, oh, I get it. I'm not a cog. I'm part of this dynamic living matrix where everything is giving back and forth. And it isn't, we talked a bit about kind of how we just know things. Like if you've ever been to a town or a country and gone, I've been here before. Not in this lifetime. I know my spirit's lived here before. I know it well. And a number of people spoke to that. So when I went to Peru, it felt like home. Well, I don't speak Spanish. I am not Hispanic or Latin. But yet when I went to that country, particularly Machu Picchu, it felt like home. So there's something about the energetics of relationship that tell us that we are more than we seem to be when we stand in our historic personality. and more of connected from lifetimes to place. In Sand Talk, Tyson Yunkaporta talks about the sense of place and land that the indigenous people of Australia have. And in that, they're viscerally connected to the land. And in the way that they work together, they use that connection to help the group, to help the land, to help what lives on the land. There are people who are called geopaths, and those people register what happens on the earth in their body. Maybe it's earthquakes, maybe it's fires. I'm not a geopath, but people who speak to it talk about it being a physical sensation, and they know with an inner certainty when they hear that an earthquake was happening somewhere, that was what they're registering. So there are so many levels that we register that we are in relationship with something beyond the physical borders of this body. My question to all of us is, what is that? How will the future be if we humans start to talk from, act from being in relationship with others, with the land, with nature? We talked a little bit about how, one woman said, I don't know if I can hold someone like that I can hold them in a larger, other than their historic personality that they present to me. And I think it is making room for them. It is a more intimate act if we say, I hold the whole of you. I hold all that you represent to me. Because oftentimes, if you know someone and their gifts, you see them, but sometimes the other person goes, oh, no, that couldn't be me. I was with a group of women once in Ireland, and we told each other, we shared what we thought our larger self was. And sometimes we could share it and the others would go, yeah, that's true. That's you. Yeah, got it. And other times somebody would say, I don't know. And so everybody would tell them what they saw in them as their larger self. And by larger self, I really mean that part of your spirit that came here to do its work here. It's not your historic personality. It's not the ideas and structures that you learned growing up. It's another sense of who you are. And the more that you are able to move into that and be that, the greater opportunity you have for doing what you came here to do and be. One of the things that we use the creation templates for is to help us answer those questions, to help us be able to expand to a greater sense of what we are and a greater sense of what the universe is in unity. Because the reality we live in is a reality of separation. It wants us to think that we're alone, that we don't have anybody else, that the other is against us. But that's not actually true. It's just a story. And in Einstein's terminology, it's an old story that needs to go, because that sense of isolation, that sense of others are against me, corrodes us and corrodes the world in relationship. Both Einstein and Yunkaporta believe that the present society that we're in is not sustainable. The future that we all thought was going to be rosy back in the 50s and early 60s isn't possible. It's falling apart. And the only way that we can come to create the world that we crave is through changing how we relate to each other, how we relate to land, and how we relate to nature. Einstein is using the ideas of interbeing, of interrelationships, and how we need to build those. Yunkaporta speaks from an idea of, well, let's look at indigenous practices. And see what of how they lived with the land, with nature, with each other, and see if any of that is something that we can practice in our own being and our own relating to others. Because I think it is in the being of. I can't, if I don't, my phraseology all the time is put it on. Have, like you put on a new dress or a new outfit and say, well, how do I feel in this? Does this feel like me? Or am I comfortable in this? Does it make me feel really cute, very pretty, handsome? And it's a very similar thing when we start saying, well, if I'm honest about what my gifts are, more of who I came here to be, then that's just who I am. And it really, and I live from that idea or that concept or that feeling instead of hiding it away. And the more I live who I believe myself to be, my larger self, let's say, the more I am. And the more I recognize that you and I are related, that it isn't just the relationship of biology, but the fact that we share this planet together, I start to envision us in a matrix, a beautiful matrix where energy is running back and forth. And the matrix isn't just this physical life, it's the etheric life, where our soul came from and to where it will return. There's a dynamics of relationships that go far beyond this earth that connect us to all the dimensions, all 19, 20 or more of them. And from the past to the present, one of the women asked the question, she says, well, how are timelines related? And then somebody talked about time travel and how they must be a relationship between different timelines so that people can access past lives, do time travel, and come back and apply the information to this lifetime. I had a friend once who said that she believed that that her past lives could access information from her present life, as well as her present life could access information from past lives. That's relational. Maybe those lives exist simultaneous. That's another idea I've seen out there, is these are simultaneously experienced lifetimes. So anyway, it was a far-ranging discussion. It was lots of fun. I so love that these people come and talk with me. And next week, we're talking about another story, another two stories. The next story is what happens to others or the world will always affect me because self and other are inseparably related. Isn't that fantastic? Inseparably. In other words, there is no way you're going to get out of a relationship. So I invite you, if you want to come in and discuss with us or just listen to the discussion, it's free. And I'm going to put a link in the YouTube about the registration. Love to have you. Let me know what you think about these small snippets of the discussion. And we'll continue to investigate and discover and be more together. Thank you, dear. Bye-bye.